We are done with prep races and we are starting to talk Derby some more.
Trust the Profits is proud to be sponsored by Game of Silks. Go to silks.io to get in the game. Real ownership, real races, real rewards.
Whew, trust the profits. It's the formula here. We just finished up the Lexington this past weekend and we are done with prep races. We're done with gaining points with a bit of a caveat there. There's an asterisk. Yeah, you see the man to the left of me there. That's the asterisk right there. We'll talk about that in a second as we're going to talk through Derby talk. 150th Kentucky Derby. Pretty exciting times. AI image of the week, horses racing go-karts. I expected that horse to be in the go-kart racing at Mario Kart style. I'll take what I can get. This is what Gemini AI gives me. Not the greatest, but I'll take it. 17 days till the Kentucky Derby as I record this on a Wednesday night, the 17th of April. Probably going to release it on the 18th. What am I going to be running through? I'll be running through my power rankings, which could be adjusting between now and then as we start digging into the data and realizing maybe a few more things we overlooked, but giving you my opinions as I see them today. Derby points, giving you the list of Derby points, who's ranked where, the Baffert effect. Yeah, so that's what I was alluding to earlier. What is the Baffert effect? Baffert is not going to be in the Derby, or is he? If you're following things on Twitter, if you're following things in the news at all, you know that there are things going on, not pushed by Baffert himself, but the owner of Muth is really pushing to get Baffert horses into the Derby, and there's going to be a decision on that at some point soon. And then prep times. I'm going to touch on that again. I touched on this the last time we did Derby talks. I think it's an interesting topic for us to discuss here.
I thought it was interesting.
Thought it was interesting then. I think it's interesting now because, as I'll show you, it really would have helped in terms of figuring out what the Derby was like last year. I'm not going to say it happened like that every year, but sometimes you can align these things properly, these different metrics, and maybe they work out to giving you a solid prediction. So we'll take a look at those real quickly, and let's just get started here. Starting at the top with my power rankings. These are not Trust the Profit power rankings. These are my power rankings. I still have at the top, I have Fierceness. And I'll go back to what I was saying before about Fierceness. He's run the best 8.5 furlong race, and he's run the best 9 furlong race. And I realize um, there are people out there that are going to knock Fierceness for the way he runs and having a down Holy Bull, I believe it was. Um, yeah, Sarah Bodway was talking about this on Twitter. I think some people gave her flack on that too, but she has a good point. You have to consider that. You really have to take a look at that. I still have Fierceness at the top, but I realize he has weaknesses, or he has shown weaknesses at times. And you load him up into a 20 horse race, those weaknesses could really get exploited. He could find himself in a position where he's able to get past that and run his best race, at which point I believe he is the best horse. But we also have to consider what he could be up against there and look for ways around him. He could end up being the post time favorite. So the post time favorite, that's the horse with the arrow, or the target on his back, the arrow on his back. Was he Steve Martin? Arrow to the head, yeah. For those of you that remember. Anyway, yeah, he's the one that people are going to be most looking at to see what are the weaknesses and does it make sense for us to work against him in that respect, because there's plenty of people out there who do not want to play the chalk, right? I mean, we talk about this all the time on Trust the Profits about eating chalk. Yep, just like this guy does, whether it makes sense or whether it doesn't make sense. And you always have to take a look at the chalk first and then assess whether there's enough weaknesses for you to play something a little bit longer and make yourself a bit of a profit. After that, I have Stronghold. I really do like Stronghold. I know a couple people were trying to find weaknesses in Stronghold this week, but I think he's run some pretty good races. Again, these power rankings, I know they're done running prep races, but I'm gonna take a look at these over the next few weeks, especially as things start to fall out and we see who's in, who's out, taking a deeper look into those prep races again, just like with the draft, right? Forever Young, the Japanese horse. I think we got a really strong Japanese horse here this year, and I don't think the crop this year in the U.S. is one of the strongest that we've had, just looking at the times. So I think this could be a year for a Japanese horse to sneak in. Forever Young definitely seems like one of the strongest we've seen in a while. Sierra Leone, some people have him number 1. I've got him number 4. Go ahead and pick a fight with me. Go ahead. Endlessly. I took him off my list because for a while they were saying Endlessly is not targeted towards the Derby. He's got enough points. He had a great win at the Jeff Ruby, had a 4-length win over any other horse in that race. But now we're starting to hear that they might make a decision to run him in the Derby. Could be an interesting decision for Michael McCarthy and team. So I've got Endlessly pretty high if he does end up running. Just Steel, Midnight Bourbon of the crew here, a horse that always seems to finish in second or third. Not always, but many times. And last time out, finishing second, I believe, to Fierceness at the Florida Derby, but he finished pretty close in that race. We'll find out when we get to the numbers in a second. We can go over that again. But that's one of the reasons I do have Just Steel so high. Dornock taking a drop. Resilience looked good, but of course it was the Wood Memorial and it wasn't the strongest of races. Catching Freedom, not as high on him as other people are. Mystic Dan, if it's mud, move him up. Catalytic, I do kind of like the race that he ran recently. I think that was the Florida Derby he ran in. We'll see that in a second. Domestic product, not super high on, but pretty good. Track Phantom, pushing down, still got him up there just a touch. I don't have him as high as other people do. I don't put a lot of credence into his last race. And then Honor Marie rounding out my top 15. Not super high on Honor Marie. Honor Marie dropping down the list, 15. Go ahead. Someone's going to pick a fight with me on that one in the comment section, and I freaking dare you. The Baffert effect. Yeah, I'm looking at the name. Did I spell it right? I did. I did. It just looks weird in all caps. So yeah, Muth won the Arkansas. But of course, Baffert is his trainer, and per the rules that CDI put in place, doesn't get the 100 points. If he had those 100 points, he'd be right in the thick of things, as I'll show you in a second. This is a clipping from Louisville Courier Journal, but I'm sure you guys have seen plenty of other news clippings on this and Twitter articles. But Mirzadan versus Churchill Downs fighting to get Baffert horses back in the Derby, seeking a temporary injunction that would allow Baffert trained horses to compete on May 4th at Churchill Downs. Baffert himself is not a party in this lawsuit, but it is around the horses that he trains, and it is really revolving around his own suspension, but he's not the one pushing this. So, what does that mean? Let's take a look at the point standing. Yeah, okay. So I know it's a bit of an eye chart, but it's really hard to squeeze all this in. I wanted to get as many horses in here as possible, so I apologize for that. I know someone's going to hit me up in the comments. I can't read it. Sierra Leone's at the top, Fierceness, Catching Freedom, Stronghold, and then Muth would be number 5 with 125 points. Resilience, Forever Young, Endlessly, and then Imagination would be number 9, I believe, or would be in that mix with the hundreds in there as well. Timberlake currently has 81, but he is out. Cox pulled him out. Doesn't feel like he is a Derby appropriate horse. Doesn't feel like he can withstand the distance or the challenge of the Kentucky Derby. Dornock, Just a Touch, Track Phantom, West Saratoga, Just Steel, rounding out the top 15, including horses that are either suspended or off. So really, that's the top 12 as of right now. But we're leading those horses in there because the judge could make a decision to overturn that. Flipping the page, Honor Marie, Domestic Product, Catalytic, Deterministic, who I believe is out. I probably should have crossed him out. That's on me. Deterministic, I did hear, is not going to be competing in the Derby because his owners decided that it would not be the best plan for him. We have Tio Password from Japan as part of the Japan Road to the Derby selection, even for horses that don't necessarily run in races that make points, but they are in specific races that they have won, that they can have a specific road into the Derby, different from what Forever Young did. Then Society Man, Mystic Dan, No More Time is off. He's injured. Wind Me Up, Baffert. But now we're getting into those 20s where a couple of the horses you see above, right? Obviously, Baffert suspensions, but there's a couple that we've crossed off already, Deterministic and Timberlake, that could squeeze a couple horses up. The 4 that I have stars next to is Society Man, Mystic Dan, Encino. Oh, come on. You know what we're going for here. You know what we're going for. Come on.
Shush! Trust me.
Yeah, trust me, indeed. And yeah, we did mention that Timberlake is off.
I'm bringing sexy back.
Yeah, but not bringing it back to the Derby. But anyway, we were saying about Encino and Grand Mo the first. Depending on how the suspension thing could work out, some of those horses could squeak in or not. They could be knocked out. Those are the horses that are currently on the, we'll call it the Baffert bubble. Even Wind Me Up himself is in the middle of the Baffert bubble or just the bubble in general. Um, at 24 currently, even with the ones that are crossed out. And yeah, I forgot to cross out deterministic. That's another one that I heard was off. Um, it's going to be interesting to see who makes it in, who doesn't, just purely based on that. So a lot is going to come down. It should be by the end of the week. I don't think it's going to come out by the time this video airs, but we'll see. It's a possibility. I hear beeps now, so maybe my Facebook message group with all the Trust the Profits people are talking about the Baffert decision. I doubt it, but that would be funny if I'm talking about it as we did. Moving on, I was talking about this before 2024 prep finish time. So yeah, these are the times here. Um, I know some people don't put stock in the actual times because there's just variance between different courses, but I like to do so, and I'll show you why in the next slide. So, Fierceness with a 148.22 at the Florida Derby was extremely impressive. Muth just beating Just Steel. So that's the one I was alluding to earlier about Just Steel. Um, not too far off of Muth in that one, running in 149s as well as Stronghold. So those are like the four horses that ran a sub 159 furlong. Not too bad, not too bad. I really dig that. Um, I think that's something to hang your hat on. I think if Muth is in, he's moving very high in my Derby Power rankings. I'm not going to move him to one. I'm not going to put him above Fierceness, but I'm probably going to put him at number two. I don't think I can put anyone else really above him. Imagination, I wasn't expecting to put him so high, but right below Stronghold because they were neck and neck. Stronghold with a slightly better time than Imagination. And I must say, for any horse that came in second or third, I made adjustments based on lengths. So using an equation of, I think, a fifth of a second equals one length, making that calculation. So these are not actual clock times, but they're adjustments based off of specific calculations for this. Endlessly is up there. Sierra Leone is up there. A lot of people really like Sierra Leone. He had a good time at Bluegrass, but you can see there's a lot of other horses in other races that ran better times than he did. So that's one of my considerations for putting Sierra Leone fourth. If I read into the times, and a lot of people are going to rag on me for this, uh, doesn't make him my number one. Go ahead and throw daggers at me for this. But honestly, I I'm gonna put Sierra Leone where I got him right now at fourth. Endlessly's up there. Catalytic. This is why I have him so high. So in the Florida Derby, yeah, he ran behind Fierceness, but finishing behind Fierceness, if you do the calculation, he actually came up with a pretty good time in that one, chasing Fierceness down or doing his best to do so. Resilience is up there too, though. Resilience with a 150.28. Dornock, as you can see, he's been pushed down a lot of charts here. A lot of people had him pretty high. Not as high as Sierra Leone anymore. The horse that he beat way back in the day. West Saratoga, not super high on him. And then there's a few horses in here that were running in slop and mud that got 152s and higher. So why does this matter? Let's just take a look at last year, and I've got the 8.5 furlong numbers on there, the 9 furlong numbers as well. Once you cross off Practical Move and Forte, who did not run in the Derby, the top three horses were Two Phil's, Mage, and Angel of Empire. If that's your trifecta box, congratulations, you just won the 2023 Kentucky Derby, Mage, Two Phil's, Angel of Empire in that order. So you just have to flip Two Phil's and Mage around, and you got yourself a pretty solid win there, which is why I'm looking at it this year. I realize you can't look at that in 2022. Rich Strike is not going to be popping off the page. If you look at it in 2021, you're talking about Rock Your World and Medina Spirit. I think Rock Your World beat Medina Spirit by like 3 or 4 lengths in the Santa Anita Derby, and obviously did not fare as well in the Kentucky Derby as Medina Spirit did. So you know, it depends on the year, but I think there's at least a little something to it, and it's fun to look at these trends to see what's going to bear fruit and what's not. At Trust the Profits, we're going to be looking at this over the next few weeks, right? We've got 17 days. We're going to be looking at a whole bunch of different angles and seeing what horses pop out. Maybe try to find some consistency there. We've got a lot of videos coming out. We've been talking in the groups about what we're going to be putting out. So we hope you guys are on board. Hit the subscribe button, get all of our information, and yeah, have a good one.